Hello and welcome to Shoot the Hostage with me, Dan, and my partner, Sarah. We're a movie podcast who talks about a different film each week based on a theme. We do swear and we do spoil the featured movie, so only ever listen if you've seen the film or you don't care too much about spoilers. If you're a regular listener, you can just skip forward until you hear the intro music because you've heard all of this before. But if you are new to the show and you do enjoy what you hear, there are a couple of things you can do to help support the show. Firstly, make sure that you're subscribed on your podcast player so you get notified when new shows drop on Mondays. You could rate us 5 stars on Spotify, which couldn't be easier. You just hit the star icon below the show's artwork. Or if you have a spare few minutes, we'd love it if you could submit a review wherever you listen. Make sure you come follow us at STH_pod on social media. We are active on Instagram, X, Threads, and TikTok. And lastly, the biggest thing you can do to help is tell a friend about the show. So that's about it. That's enough preamble from me. Over to me and Sarah for this week's episode. We're back. We're back for season 5.
We are.
We're back. We had a little break and now we're back for another 8-episode run of a particular theme of movies.
Yes. When you say we had a break, we weren't being lazy. It's the scheduled break.
It's the scheduled break. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's how we work. We do 8 on, 4 off.
Yep.
We've done 5 now, and this is number 5. So we're starting to get used to that and get into the swing of it.
I hope so.
And also, when I say break, we're still releasing bits and pieces of content.
And we're still recording during that time anyway.
Yeah.
We're not sitting on our thumbs.
No, we're trying to get ahead. We're trying to get as ahead as possible. But yeah, so we're back for our 5th season. We're back for our 33rd episode. This season, the theme was my choice because we've actually gone down a path now of taking it in turns to choose the theme of the season.
We didn't even have a conversation about this. It just kind of happened. I'm not quite sure what went on there. We were just like, yeah, this one's all you.
I know what went on there.
Oh, do you?
You in season 4, you went, I want to do folklore. And then you were looking at the movies and I was like, listen, this is all you. I'm happy if you just want to choose all the movies.
Right.
So I think we just naturally transitioned into season 5. Oh, Dan, it's your turn. But I think that's a good idea. Yeah,
I mean, if you offered me the power at the start of season 4, I'm not likely to turn that down, am I? Being the control freak that I am.
But I wouldn't say you're a control freak. That's a very strong sentence for you. You like to be in control.
Yeah.
But the word freak is not useful.
Okay.
Unless
That's definitely a discussion for another day.
Well, unless you're using it in an Alex Winter kind of way.
Oh, always.
Yeah, so my turn. So I've gone for neo-Western.
Mm-hmm. Why? Because I think it's important to preface this season by saying that neither of us are really fans of Westerns. But I was thinking about how to phrase this, because when I say we're not fans of Westerns, I think it's because we haven't given them enough of a shot to be fans of them. Like, I personally haven't seen enough of them. So it's not that I'm not a fan, it's just that I've sort of intentionally or unintentionally kind of avoided the genre as a whole for the most part.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I've avoided the genre particularly. I would say that I probably saw a bunch of black and white ones on the telly when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it's not a genre that's ever really appealed to me hugely.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am a huge fan of action films.
Yeah.
And there are so many tropes that are influenced in action movies by the Western genre.
Oh, there's a big crossover, yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge crossover. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I've been avoiding them. There are a few Westerns that are on my radar to watch as part of research for this season, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to just do Western. And I sort of thought of a movie that I wanted to cover. And I'm not going to say what that movie is because we announced our schedules on Patreon.
Oh, cryptic.
But later, it's not this one. I'll tell you that. But there was a movie, and I know that it was originally conceived as a Western, so that's how I'm going to justify that one.
Right. Okay.
It ended up being totally not a Western,
mm-hmm.
but you can see the kind of the threads in there.
All right. Well, this is a really good place to sort of ask you then, what is neo-Western? What defines a neo-Western?
Okay. Well, while I was choosing the lineup for this season, I was looking at various films. We both were looking at various films, and we were trying to figure out, well, is this a neo-Western?
Yeah.
So I did go on to Wikipedia and I got this definition. It said contemporary Western, They call it contemporary Western.
Right,
So
okay.
I think those two terms are interchangeable. Contemporary Western is a subgenre of the Western genre that includes contemporary settings and uses Old West themes, archetypes, and motifs, such as a rebellious anti-hero, open plains and desert landscapes, or gunfights. And
Okay.
I've written down Wikipedia. I don't think Wikipedia ended that sentence with Wikipedia. Do they end all sentences with Wikipedia?
Love from Wikipedia.
Yours faithfully.
I like to think that's how they sign things off, yeah.
Well, that's how I address them in Google.
Is
Dear
it?
Wikipedia. Yeah, so that's the definition that we've got. So
Okay.
the thing that I wasn't sure about
Mhm.
was, for example, Kurt Russell movie that I can't spoil. If I say anything about it, it's a spoiler. What's it called? Bone Tomahawk.
But yeah. Oh, what's his name? Zala.
S. Craig Zala,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the one, yeah. I was thinking about having that in this season.
Yeah.
Spoilers, it's not. But the reason that it's not is that because that is set in the Old West, so it's just a Western. It has other elements in there.
That's interesting because I sort of was a bit misinformed in that case. I was kind of under the impression that neo-Western also included Westerns merged with a different genre, and I would consider Bone Tomahawk very much horror Western.
Yeah.
So I thought that counted. But because of the setting, because of the time period, it doesn't count, is what you're saying?
I think so.
Right.
I'm along the same line of thinking as you, because there's things that happen in that movie that don't happen in regular Westerns.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking like, is that a neo-Western because it subverts the genre somewhat? But no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Taking that strict definition from Wikipedia, if you're using that as your guideline, then it does say it's a contemporary set film.
Yeah, and Wikipedia is never wrong, so...
No. But, I'm sure that there's someone out there with a better definition and honestly, like, a way better understanding of Westerns and any subgenres attached to it.
Yeah, well, as
than
we always
us.
say, we're not film experts, we're not film theorists, we're just passionate film fans.
We're just people what love movies.
Yeah.
And also, like, this is an area that the neo-Western, like, I've enjoyed doing the research, scheduling the movies, figuring out what qualifies, what doesn't qualify. And I feel like throughout watching this entire run of movies that we've got coming up over the next 8 weeks, I feel like I'm going to learn something. I'm going to spot,
Yeah.
I already have, but I'm going to spot more of the tropes, more of the things that need to be included for it to qualify as a neo-Western. I'll say that there's maybe one or two that I might have a difficult time justifying.
Okay.
But I think I can.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yeah. But we're opening strong. We are here today to talk about Logan from 2017, which is 7 years ago.
Don't. Because, do you know what? When I was doing some research for this and I was jotting down a bunch of really pertinent points from the film, I was like, set in 2029. And I was like, oh my God, that's so futuristic. Oh God, that's 5 years from now.
Yeah.
I had a moment of existential terror.
It blows my mind. It feels like this came out a year ago.
Yeah.
In my mind. It's crazy. In 6 years' time, we'll be able to do Days of Future Past season.
Don't. I've already got Future Past. Look, Future Past is already a theme on my list, so.
Yeah, I've got X-Men on the brain, haven't I?
2017, directed by James Mangold.
Yep. Jim Beam Mangold. Jimmy. Jim Boy.
As he's known to his pals.
Yeah, he made it on a measly budget of $97 million. So proper fucking scraping a barrel with the finances over at Fox Studios in 2016. It's an interesting one. It was hugely successful.
Yeah.
It grossed $619 million at the worldwide box office.
Wow, okay.
As I say, on a near $100 million budget. So really, really successful.
Good return, yeah.
Good return. But it was made in a very unique time. I don't know if you want to talk about any of the previous movies or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay. Well, let's start there then. We'll come back to Logan in a bit. But,
okay.
So what's your first experience with the X-Men? Did you read any of your comics? Were you aware of...
So,
were you aware of them before the movies in the first
yes.
one in 2000, I think?
Yeah, absolutely. I had never read any of the comics. I have still never read any of the comics. But my first exposure to the X-Men was the cartoon when I was a kid. I was obsessed.
Yeah.
Between that and the real Ghostbusters, I was set as a child. Gambit was always my favourite.
I think Gambit was my favourite in the cartoon.
He was the coolest, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't the coolest in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
The less said about that, the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, how about you?
Pretty much the same, I would say.
Okay.
It was definitely the X-Men cartoon. I wasn't hugely aware of comics when I was a child. That's something that I came to more later in life.
That's not how it's supposed to work.
It's not usually,
so I'm told.
No, it's not. But honestly, I don't think I even sort of understood what comics were until I was about 13 or 14.
I did, but only in the context of like the Beano.
Right. Got you. I had, I think I had access to some graphic novels, but I just thought that was a book.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I hadn't read any of the X-Men comics back in the day when the cartoon was on. Loved the cartoon. I think it was like a Saturday morning job or something.
Yeah.
That music was just fucking great. And just, it was such a, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people probably accessed the X-Men because of that cartoon.
I would imagine so, yeah. From our generation, certainly.
Yeah. And then when they announced, I guess circa 99, when they were actually making a live action X-Men movie, you got to remember it's way before the superhero genre really kicked off. Obviously, you had Batman and Superman before that.
And that excellent Captain America.
The 1991. That is a masterpiece, and I won't hear any different.
Sure.
It was definitely a game changer. Now, I was really excited for the original X-Men movie, but I didn't love it when I saw it. It was like...
Did you not?
No, I thought it was all right.
So you would have been like, what, 16?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I was more of the mind of, oh, these movies could be good.
Right.
And I found that to be...
So even back then you were a cynic.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever changed. And it never will. I thought, yeah, this is all right. We could do better.
Okay.
And we did. You know, I feel like the first X-Men movie is a pretty solid entry given the time period. If it came out now, I would think, not great. It's not doing anything new. But
we've got such a different frame of reference in terms of superhero stuff these days, though. I actually really enjoyed the first movie. I would have been about 18 when that came out. I went to see it at the cinema. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the second one too. And then Vinnie Jones and I'm the Juggernaut bitch happened and just tanked it for me.
Yeah, rubber costume abs. Vinnie Jones.
God.
Who thought that was a good idea?
I don't know.
I'll tell you who.
Brian Singer.
And Brett Ratner.
Oh no.
Together. What a team up. Oh my God. Yeah, so that X-Men 3 movie kind of started to sour the franchise a little bit, right? Because after that we got, I want to say X-Men Origins Wolverine came after that.
I believe so, yeah.
And that is, I think, quite rightly regarded as the arse end of the franchise. It's right out there hanging out the bottom as a fucking terrible movie.
That's the one with, was it mute, sort of microwaved looking Ryan Reynolds? Oh man, that was bad.
Nuked Reynolds, yeah. And he had his mouth sewn shut. And
yeah.
It was the original Deadpool, or the first live action interpretation of Deadpool. And obviously that led on to something down the line as well. But yeah, that
little film.
Yeah, yeah. But the Wolverine was not great. There was meant to be a Magneto one as well, but that never happened. I guess
I wonder why.
This one just failed so terribly. Then it fell to Matthew Vaughn, I think, in about 2011 for X-Men First Class. Really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
I watched that and it was my favourite X-Men movie, like straight away.
Okay.
And then it was my favourite X-Men movie until Days of Future Past came out a couple of years later, and then that was my favourite X-Men movie. But unfortunately, Bryan Singer came back for that one. But I
thought
like,
that was a good idea.
I don't know. I kind of think, we're sort of remembering back to the what was going on back then, I think Matthew Vaughn had developed Days of Future Past, and then Singer just came in late in the day. Was like, no, I'm fucking directing that.
Oh, what a twat!
I wouldn't.
Allegedly,
he is such a twat. I don't care if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't want to get sued, but he's a bellend and a potential criminal. So.
Yes, he's potentially, allegedly, he's definitely a bad dude, right?
Yeah.
Allegedly, just in case.
Yeah.
But he came back and he did direct a great movie that time.
I've never called his directorial choices into question.
I have.
Bar Bohemian Rhapsody.
Well, yeah. I have.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Superman Returns. I mean, what?
Oh yeah,
what
all right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Kevin Spacey's also in that movie.
Oh,
if we're talking about the boys' club.
Oof.
Yeah. God, I don't want. Let's move on from Bryan Singer, Brett Ratner, and Kevin Spacey. I don't want to.
It's putting a bad taste in my mouth.
I don't want to linger on negativity too much.
No.
So I don't know why we're talking about X-Men films. But yeah, so then obviously Days of Future Past, and then Apocalypse was a big pile of turd, awful. Have you seen Apocalypse?
I'm not sure.
It's Oscar Isaac is in it as the villain, Apocalypse.
I will go out on a limb and say if Oscar Isaac's in it, I probably will have seen it, but I remember nothing about it.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is it's Days of Future Past was so much fun, and it had that Quicksilver scene that we all remember and love.
Evan Peters, he was great.
As Quicksilver. Perfect, brilliant.
Yeah.
And then they tried to recreate some of that in Apocalypse, and it just did not work. It was just like, remember this last time we did this thing? Well, we're going to do it again this time. We've got a song, what is better? And it didn't work. It was awful. Although that is probably the best scene in the movie. And then we're getting Deadpool.
Yeah.
We're getting Deadpool 2. We're getting Logan. And they really finished quite strong, I feel like. Deadpool.
But what about Dark Phoenix?
Oh, God.
Because I haven't seen that one.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think most people did.
I didn't hate that as much as everyone. Because I think with an X-Men movie, I think I'm expecting it either to be brilliant or terrible. And there's a couple of middling ones in there. I would say the first one's middling for me, and the second one is kind of middling for me as well.
Okay.
But aside from that, I think they're really good or really bad, in my opinion. And I was kind of expecting that to probably be really bad, and I watched it and thought, it's all right. It had some interesting ideas and stuff that I wanted to see in other X-Men movies that hadn't happened up to that point. And Simon Kinberg directed that one, I think, and he'd wanted to direct an X-Men movie for the longest time. So I was like quite happy for him to direct. I think he's nice. So, but if he's a piece of shit, then
if you're listening to this 5 years from now and he's done a Weinstein, then we take it back.
Yeah, based on current information, we think it's all right. But yeah, I didn't mind that. I thought it was okay. I'll rewatch that, I
think my disinterest stemmed from the fact that it got terrible reviews, but also because I think Jean Grey is one of the least interesting characters that they could have chosen to focus on.
Yeah.
So I was just... It didn't grab me.
Well, I think the other problem with it is that it's Dark Phoenix again. They did Dark Phoenix in X-Men 3, I think. And then we're just doing Dark Phoenix again. Okay. But it felt like it was kind of like, look, we're really sorry about what we did then. We're going to try and do a better version of this. And it's just like, it's all right.
A for effort.
Yeah. But there's some interesting stuff in there. I think it gets a bad rap, and I think it might be worth a reappraisal. But
okay.
Listen, it's not gonna change the world. But that does lead us up to sort of roughly where Logan is. Fox Studios had built a lot of good faith in the superhero genre with the X-Men franchise, not so much with the Fantastic Four movies.
Yikes.
And they obviously had the rights to all of these mutant characters. So in 2016, off the back of mostly huge success for these movies, we forgot about the Wolverine, which was James Mangold's first.
I always forget about that
film.
one.
So do I.
Jesus, yeah.
But he had made that, I think, in 2014 that came out.
Right.
And that did really well too. So he was given a decent-ish budget for Logan, but because I think he wanted to make a darker movie, and it was kind of that period where Disney were about to procure Fox.
Everything.
Yeah. So I feel like it was probably just a bit of, Hugh, thank you so much for the work you've done. James Mangold, thank you for all the work you've done, because he's worked with Fox a bunch as well.
Okay.
It's probably a bit like, look, we've got to make this for less than your average X-Men movie, but let's make a good one. Let's do something different. You kind of got carte blanche to do what you want. So it was in that interesting time period, and I don't think this movie would have happened had it not been for that Disney acquisition of Fox.
That's interesting, yeah, because I did read something that a lot of people kind of credit this movie's success and also its R rating to Deadpool, and that astronomical success off the back of an R-rated comic book movie, because nobody really anticipated that at the time. It wasn't the done thing.
It wasn't a done thing, I think.
But apparently this was nothing to do with Deadpool, so... No,
I think Deadpool... to us, came out before Logan, so we were like, oh, look, an R-rated comic book movie can slay and do really, really well. But this had obviously already been in production, and they kind of knew what they were doing by the time Deadpool came out. So I think there was some nervousness around how terribly X-Men Apocalypse did shortly before that. But then when Deadpool came out and it was R-rated, I do think they sort of let out a sigh of relief, going, oh, okay, so we could, if it's good, we could still have a hit.
Yeah.
So I think it gave them a bit more confidence, I think. But they were always going to do it that way. I think we would always have gotten this movie given the circumstances of the Disney acquisition. But I don't think it would have happened without that. I feel like it would have been, no, we can't kill off a main character. We've got to keep him alive. But at that point, Fox are like, well, we might not have a job in a year, so we might as well make something good.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I would feel, I think.
I think that's how all of these films should be made. I think all of them should be based on that predication that you might not get another shot, so go all out.
Yeah. I think there's room for both. I think that we can have the MCU and that's doing what it's doing, and we can talk about that at length as much as
Do
you
we
like,
have
or we
to?
don't have to. Like, we can leave it. There's probably not, because that's going to be a long conversation. But obviously, those movies are now becoming
Timid.
more of a product, I would say, oddly. Yeah.
They're also timid now.
Yeah.
Tepid.
I would say around about the 2014 mark, 2015, they were starting to toy with the ideas of genre, or subgenres. Like you had the spy thriller in Winter Soldier and the heist movie of Ant-Man. But they definitely moved away from that. They sort of promised Doctor Strange being a horror movie, which never sort of happened. But I feel like that was when Marvel was at its strongest, and it's a shame that they've stopped doing that. I do think there's probably a good way to kind of find a nice middle ground somewhere.
But yeah, I think my biggest issue with the MCU, and I will leave it at this, is just to say I feel like superhero movies always work better when they are a little bit grounded, because I can't emotionally connect to something that's pure CGI. Take Quantumania, for example. It just, like, most of it looked like a cartoon, and I didn't give a shit about anything that happened. It was somewhat entertaining while it was sort of projecting itself into my eyeballs, but as soon as it had finished, I was like, I'll never watch that again. Yeah,
that's the kind of the difference, isn't it? I think now with those MCU movies, is it now that I think probably the best we can hope for at the moment is, it was perfectly entertaining.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
I think given the continued sort of box office hammering that they've been getting of late, they're going to have to make changes.
Yeah, and they are. I think they're scaling back a lot of the productions that are coming out now. I think Deadpool has been delayed, and that can only be a good thing. I know that it was kind of like during the strikes, so it had to be to a certain degree, but the same thing with Blade, the same thing I think with Echo, which might be out now, but I haven't seen it.
I think maybe.
Yeah. But I feel like, I don't know, I think they're probably doing a bit of a quality control check at the moment.
Well, they could learn a lot from Logan, put it that way.
They could learn a lot from old Jim Mangold. Mangold?
Mangold.
Jim Mangold, yeah. Director of this movie. He actually started life
as a baby.
His career. He started his life as a baby, yeah. He started his career with Disney, I think.
Okay. What are his earlier films then? What did he do with Disney? Because I'm not super familiar with his filmography.
Well, I didn't write any of those down.
Okay.
I didn't look it up. So I didn't look anything up before Copland, which is the first movie that I became aware of.
Right. Copland, yes.
Yeah, which is Michael Rappaport lives in a water tank for a bit because he killed a child.
I don't remember the details. Was that Stallone?
Yeah.
I thought so.
It's been a long time since I've seen that, so I may be misremembering that. But I think it's like a Harvey Keitel, it's a Robert De Niro, it's kind of a Scorsese-esque crime thing. And it was good. I liked it at the time. I haven't seen it for ages, so quite keen to rewatch that, actually. Girl Interrupted.
Okay. This guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. But once again, ruined... or marred, should I say, by the presence of Jared Leto.
Oh, is Leto in that?
He's in so many films that would have been better without him. Well, all films would be better without him.
Yeah, agreed. I haven't seen that one.
Have you not?
No.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm looking up on your shelf, your DVD shelf. Is it up there?
It's on the shelf, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess that's going in a watch pile.
Sure is.
I've never seen Kate and Leopold. Have you seen that? Which is a time travel...
Frustratingly, yes. That's Hugh Jackman as well, isn't it?
I think I've seen the still image from that, and Hugh Jackman's in like this Mozart costume thing. And that's all I know about that film, and it's a time travel thing.
You'd hate it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's completely the thing that I would enjoy least.
It's
in my
Drek.
life ever. Curious filmography, because he's now moving on to things like Identity, I think, came after that.
Oh, I remember quite liking Identity.
Yeah.
I've only seen it once or twice, and I haven't seen it in a good 15 years, but I thought that was all right.
I remember it coming out and people really enjoying it, and I don't think I ever finished it, but I knew how it ended.
Right.
So it's like, well, yeah.
You just filled in the blanks yourself.
Yeah.
And saved the time.
But definitely would give that another go, I think. Walk the Line.
Oh.
Which is the Johnny Cash one.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, if you've seen Logan, then it's a pretty surefire bet that Mangold's a Johnny Cash fan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. He did 3:10 to Yuma, which is a really solid Western with Christian Bale.
You watched that recently, did you?
Yep. I watched that this year. No, I watched that last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, good movie. Enjoy that a lot.
Okay.
Night and Day, which
Haven't seen that.
I don't think I've seen that. I think I've seen bits of it. The Wolverine, which we mentioned, Logan,
Yep.
obviously. Ford v Ferrari, which I absolutely love.
I haven't seen it. I'm just being rude.
It's a really good movie.
Yeah, it could be fantastic.
It's a really good 50-year-old white male likes cars movie.
Oh, brilliant. Sounds right on my street.
I don't know. I think you would probably watch it and go, it was all right.
Yeah.
Because it's a really solidly made film, but it is for, as I said, 50-year-old white males that just love cars and want to watch Christian Bale be rude to somebody and drive a Ford GT40.
Behind the scenes clips from Terminator Salvation.
The fuck? You're a nice guy. But you and me are done professionally. I always think of the Adam Buxton jingle now. Whenever I think of that, those two things are sort of intertwined now. Yeah, Ford v Ferrari. Obviously, worked on, I think his latest thing at time of recording was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It was all right.
It was fine.
Yeah. It wasn't great. But it was fine.
It cost 200 million too much.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a cost-benefit analysis of that film, then it was a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
It lost loads of money, and it should not have cost as much as it did. But it was enjoyable enough.
Yeah, it was all right.
It would be the fourth best Indiana Jones movie, maybe.
Agreed.
But Kingdom of Crystal Skull is hanging way out the bottom.
Kingdom of what now?
Yeah, exactly. And coming up, he looks like he's been associated with a Bob Dylan movie. Looks like he's been named as director for that, but that was announced in 2020, and I haven't seen any movement on it. Timothée Chalamet was also linked to that.
Oh, no, I'm out.
No?
No, initially I was like, Bob Dylan? Oh, yeah, Timothée Chalamet. No.
You don't like Timothée Chalamet?
I think he's decent. I like a handful of films he's been in. I thought Bones and All was fantastic. I liked Dune.
Call Me By Your Name.
Yeah, great film.
Don't Look Up. Wonka.
Don't Look Up really didn't benefit from his presence, though, did it? Wonka is what's done it. Wonka was the turn. I had to watch that trailer so many times, and I'm so over him as a human.
We haven't seen Wonka, but I think he's brilliant. I think he's really, really good. And I don't know enough about Bob Dylan to really have an opinion on who should play that role. So he seems like as good a choice as anybody to me.
Can he sing?
I mean, wasn't Wonka a musical? So he probably did a sing in that.
Oh, God.
Probably did a song with Hugh Grant as Ian Palumpa.
Well, now I want to watch that movie even less.
Yeah. But, you know, I haven't heard any movement on that project, so I don't know if it's actually going to get made. And I would say the same for this other project that he's been linked with as well. He's been linked with the Star Wars prequel.
A Star War?
A Star War, yeah. Set some 25,000 years before, I guess, the Skywalker saga. But again, I don't know if that's actually going to happen. It was, I mean, the Star Wars Lucasfilm, they have a real tendency to hire people, fire people, give them a job, change their job, and things seem to change on a daily basis. And
employ Zack Snyder to make a Rebel Moon and then go, oh, no.
I don't think they actually literally employed him to do it. I think he had some ideas for it and they just flat out turned him down. But I might be...
That's even funnier.
It is. Let's go with that. That's what happened.
Okay.
Definitely. Don't look it up. But yeah, they do have a real tendency to announce things and then take them off the slate and things like that. So I don't think that that's actually going to happen. And given, I think Indy 5 was a really well-made film, well-directed. It was just a bit flat.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily blame Mangold for that. I think he probably did his best and put a lot of work and effort into it. But I feel like because that movie tanked so hard, Lucasfilm are probably going to be like, let's not give this guy a Star War. Which is, I think, the wrong way to go about it. It's the wrong way because that's not his fault. He made the best film that he can make. The directors always get all of the praise or all of the blame, and that's not how it should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he co-wrote this one with Scott Frank and Michael Green.
Okay.
And I think it was his first writing credit for a while from old Jim Bob. Cast, obviously, we've got to talk about the cast. Hugh Jackman.
Huge Ackman.
Huge Ackman. Huggood Ackman.
Yeah.
X-Men movies, Eddie the Eagle, which I really enjoyed, which is the second time that's come up today, oddly.
I haven't thought about that in like 3 years, and we've mentioned it twice today.
No, I really enjoy that movie. I think it's
all right,
it's good. Chappie, which I like more than most, I would say, but I understand why you wouldn't want to watch it. Prisoners, masterpiece.
Yeah.
The Prestige. And obviously you've got things like Les Mis.
Because he came from musical theatre, didn't he?
He's a musical guy.
Yeah, he was. I remember back in the... Right, so I used to own on DVD, I think it was DVD or VHS. There's an Australian film called, I think it's called Paperback Hero. I remember really enjoying that at the time, and it was one I would watch with my dad, just kind of like a gentle comedy, that sort of film. I have a lot of time for those. And I remember reading in a film magazine at the time that he'd started off his career in productions like Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, that one. So yeah, he's got quite a musical background.
Yeah, he's a big song and dance guy, which is, I forget, because I haven't seen any of that stuff, because I couldn't be less interested. I've seen Les Mis. Let me change that. I've seen Les Mis.
Don't understand. I hate that film.
I haven't seen The Greatest Showman. I tend to avoid any musicals, so there's a bunch of his stuff that I haven't seen. But I do forget, particularly when I'm watching Logan, I'm thinking, yeah, you're the song and dance guy, aren't you? God, you're a good actor.
Right? Because I think most people probably associate him with the character of Logan, right?
Yeah.
Wolverine.
Oh, that's his main thing that he's known for, definitely, yeah.
Indestructible and salty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very much at odds with this musical persona.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, you're right. It does show his vast range.
Vast range, yeah. The X-Men movies are definitely his most successful, financially speaking. Yeah, who else have we got in this? We've obviously got... this is our second Patrick Stewart movie.
Oh yeah, Life Force.
Yeah.
Yeah. I preferred his role in Life Force. I'm joking. Look, Patrick Stewart is always a joy to watch. I don't think I've ever seen him in a film and gone, oh, this guy.
No.
And he's fucking heartbreaking in this, man.
I would say, for me, this is maybe the peak.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart. I think he's fantastic in this.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm not going to go through and list his credits because
we'd be here all day.
Yeah, and half of them will just be Shakespeare adaptations. But mostly, obviously, it's Star Trek, X-Men for me, Green Room.
Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the USS Enterprise. Thanks, that's going to be my earworm for the rest of the day now.
Dafne Keen as X23, Laura.
This was her first film role?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Is it a TV show called His Dark Materials?
Oh, yeah.
I believe she's in that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
No, me either.
Yeah, I've heard good things though, so maybe it's something we should get to at some point.
I know it's based on books.
Based on books, is it?
Yeah. Okay. Only because I used to work in WH Smith's, so I'm pretty sure I sold some of them.
Right.
On a regular basis.
Okay. I'm amazed that you've not watched the show then.
No.
Just take you back to a simpler time when you were in WH Smith's selling book. She's actually in post-production she's not in post-production because she's an actor, you understand. Yeah. Or maybe she's doing some voice work, I don't know. So she may be in post-production. The project is in post-production and it's a Star Wars TV show called The Acolyte.
Okay, so I've heard of that.
I think I saw it on book once in WH Smith's.
Did you?
It was based on book, yeah.
We sell book.
Yeah. So outside of this, I haven't seen her in anything else. But
no.
Fucking hope I do, because she's great in this. I think everyone is great in this. I'm just going to say that now. So I'm just going to stop after I've read every name saying they were great in this. They're all great in this. Stephen Merchant, which was a curious
choice. Do you know what? I'd only seen Logan once before we watched it for this show. And I think I'd forgotten, because as soon as we started watching it again, I was just like, oh fuck, yeah, he's in this. Yeah. It's a strange casting choice, but he's good.
Yeah, it works for me. I was quite surprised when it was announced, but when I saw the movie I thought, yeah, it works.
It's always really, really odd hearing like a regional English accent in a Hollywood film.
Yeah.
But it was some welcome comic relief.
And I'm used to him seeing it, the first time I saw him was in The Office.
Yeah.
Oggy, I believe his character name is in that. And then I'm familiar with him in things like Hello Ladies, which I really enjoyed that series, and Extras. Mm. He's got a small role in Jojo Rabbit as Gestapo, remember?
Yeah. I remember I saw him do like a stand-up. It was a workshop thing. So it wasn't, a proper stand-up that he was touring with. He was just kind of workshopping some stuff. And it was so funny.
Okay.
He's underrated.
He's very good. He was in Hot Fuzz. Good Boys I've written down. I don't remember him in that, but he directed and also was in Fighting With My Family.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which was I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah,
pretty decent. And of course, I'm forgetting Tooth Fairy. Remember Dwayne The Rock Johnson becomes the Tooth Fairy?
No.
Stephen Merchant maybe is the organiser of the Tooth Fairies and says, The Rock, you now have to be a Tooth Fairy?
Wait, what?
I think that's what it was. It was called Tooth Fairy.
What? I've never heard of this.
You've never heard of it?
No.
Okay, well, I hope I'm not imagining it. It's some kind of fever dream. If it hasn't been made, maybe I should get on it.
Yeah.
Dear
Copyright.
Mr. The Rock.
I think it's just Dear Mr. Rock. The is his first name.
Yeah, Mr. Rock. Playing Gabriella is Elizabeth Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm. Only know her from Orange is the New Black.
Oh, okay. Boyd Holbrook as Donald Pierce and Richard E. Grant as Dr. Rice. I'm not going to go through their filmography because we'll be here all fucking day. And I want to get into talk about the film because we haven't started talking about a movie yet.
I know.
So, Logan, 2017.
It's good, isn't it?
Good, isn't it? Do you know what the first word in this movie is?
I don't.
It's fuck.
Right, of course it is.
It is. And you hear that and you think, this is going to be a movie.
Well, it's definitely a movie.
Yeah. I think the genius of this film is that it does things that are kind of expected when you want to be a bit edgier, but it doesn't feel like that they're forced. That first scene, when his car's getting jacked, he's sleeping in it, and he takes out this group of criminals that are trying to steal his car. He says fuck, and he's brutal, and he cuts off arms and legs. And it's perfect to set you up, to let you know this is the movie you're going to watch.
Yeah, it's like, this isn't your mum's X-Men movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Move over, singer.
Yeah.
We're going to make a proper fucking X-Men movie.
Yeah. One thing I will say, and this is absolutely not a criticism, so I don't want you to read it as such, but that opening sequence kind of reminds me, like, taken in isolation, it sort of makes me think of a fan-made film. I don't know if you ever saw it. There was that. So I'm a big fan of Thomas Jane as the Punisher. Me and no one else, apparently.
I know what you're talking about.
I really enjoyed that film. But that short kind of fan-made one that they got him involved in. And
Laundry Time or something it was called.
Yeah. But it was like hyper-violent, as we come to expect with the Punisher. But that's sort of what this makes me think of.
Yeah, that is a really great shout. I'm thinking of like Batman versus Predator and all of that sort of stuff. And they're great because they're literally made by fans and they're making something that they would like to see. And I think that you've hit the nail on the head there, because this opening scene, it sets you up and it's letting you know this is what you're going to get, but also this is something you've wanted for years and we're going to give it to you. But what my point was is that it feels like it's doing all of that stuff. And on first early viewing, when I'm getting into the film, on first viewing, I was thinking, oh, is this going to be a bit laboured, like a bit much? Are they going to be violent for violence sake? Are we going to swear for swearing's sake? But they do a good job of showing you what you're going to get, but also peppering in really vital pieces of information in the opening scene as well. And it's done really, really cleverly.
And it's just really fun to watch him wrecking people.
Yeah. After that scene, you sort of get the credits intro with the fantastic music. Again, you get like an Alex Jones type figure on the radio that's explaining this world to you. Mutants are gone and they're poisoning the water and whatever.
They're making the frogs gay.
Yeah, it is that type of thing, yeah. But it's just a really good, solid opening, I think.
Yeah, agreed. That music's great, actually. The music sort of really sets the tone.
Yeah.
And kind of betrays its Western tropes, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a Western because there's a harmonica in the score.
There's a banjo at one point, maybe? I don't know.
Patrick Stewart's got a banjo.
Is it Marco Beltrami who did the music?
Yes.
I think I read somewhere that Cliff Martinez was originally on board to do the score.
Okay.
But he was replaced with Beltrami, who managed to finish it in 6 weeks, which is no easy feat because it's a really impressive score.
Yeah, it's a really nice score.
Like part Western, part full-on action adventure kind of.
Yeah, it works. And it does feel, as you said, kind of Westerny as well with the instruments that they're using.
But not obnoxiously so.
No, just like a hint of Westerny. As subtle as you can be with a harmonica, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are many elements in this movie that make it totally qualify as a neo-Western, and you see the tropes that it's pulled from more traditional type Westerns. In fact, I would say out of all of the movies we're covering this season, this one might be the easiest to just go, definitely a neo-Western.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
Of this, and this.
I think there's maybe 1 or 2 films I haven't actually seen this season so far, but this does seem to fit very neatly into that category.
It's funny because at first viewing, I thought, yeah, this is definitely a kind of a Western vibe. But I didn't realise until watching it for the podcast just how much is in there.
Yeah.
You've got, I mean, we were watching the film, we were going, oh, it's definitely a Western because there's a freight train sequence.
Yeah. Look, there's some horses. Somebody's wearing a cowboy hat. I think even the stolen truck is a Bronco.
Right. Okay. There's a ranch.
Yeah.
There's a tracker.
Yeah.
Stephen Merchant is a tracker, and that's something I didn't. In fact, I think I picked that up when I watched the commentary, maybe, and I heard James Mangold go, "Oh, he's a tracker," and then I thought, "Oh, yeah, he's a tracker." So thanks, Jim. There's a campfire, so it's definitely a Western. Yeah, it's definitely the easiest, I would say, out of all the movies we're covering to point out and go, definitely a neo-Western. There is no denying it, and I don't think anyone's going to come for us or argue with us about that.
I wouldn't have thought so. They're even watching a Western at one point in the hotel.
Which is my one criticism, I would say, of this film.
Right.
Is that it is not very subtle about that.
I don't mind that, to be honest. Again, it's not obnoxious. It's sort of, to me, it's just more earnestly wearing its heart on its sleeve.
Yeah, that's fair. Just before this came out in 2017, I was going through that phase of buying the graphic novels of movies that were to come out so that I could compare them and like read them first and then watch the movie versions.
Okay.
And they're always completely different.
Okay. What are the major differences then? Because I haven't read any of it.
In the comic, in Old Man Logan, it's this weird alternate future where the villains have won, basically. The villains teamed up together. Each villain controls various states. And Wolverine is living on the West Coast somewhere, California. And he's like, it's Hulk territory, and he has to go on the road to pay his rent, basically. But because something had happened 50 years prior to that, and spoiler for this comic, by the way, skip ahead, I don't know, a minute or two if you haven't read the comic and you want to read it. He is a pacifist because he killed all of the X-Men. He was tricked into killing the X-Men by Mysterio.
Right.
So he's vowed never to harm anyone again, and he hasn't got his claws out for 50 years. He's just a family man, reserved pacifist, but he gets recruited for this road trip by Hawkeye, an aging Hawkeye.
Okay, this is so vastly different.
It's vastly different. Now, the similarities are the road element, the kind of the alternate close future.
Yeah.
Like the dusty, Dust Bowl kind of California-ness of it.
Yeah.
But that is pretty much it. So in a comic, I've already said that Logan killed the X-Men. In Logan, the movie,
it was Charles, wasn't it?
Charles.
Yeah.
They refer to it as the Westchester incident,
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, but that is a good kind of bait and switch when you're watching the movie, because if you've read the comic, you are thinking, oh, Logan's down and feels really depressed because he killed the X-Men. And it's not until later on in the movie that it's revealed that Charles actually did that.
Yeah.
Obviously fits in the movie within the story that they're telling a lot better.
I don't know if it's just that I've seen one and haven't read the other, but I think I prefer the movie version.
The movie is far superior to the comic.
Right,
The comic, I enjoy it. I think it's a perfectly fun read, but it lacks nuance. It's Mark Miller who lacks nuance.
Yeah.
There's been some comics of his that I enjoyed, and some movies, adaptations of his work that I've enjoyed, and some that I thought were fucking terrible. And I think that Old Man Logan is quite good, interesting, but the movie is far, far superior. I feel like it did what an adaptation should do if it's to be successful, is it took the interesting elements of the original piece and expanded on it and just made it its own thing. Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point in reproducing something exactly the same way? Let's adapt it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's way better to take the seed of an idea, because I think a lot of people as well who are really familiar with the source material and big fans of it, like, there's going to be a percentage of that audience that are going to be pissed off that it's not true to the source material.
Yeah.
But also, from my point of view, I think what I would prefer is that the film adaptation does diverge, because I've read it. So I don't want an exact retelling. I don't want to be able to predict every beat. So I'm all in favour of those kind of changes.
100%. And they're just different mediums. There are things that you can draw in a comic that you can't put on screen. That you can't
reproduce visually. Yeah. Absolutely.
For example, in the comic, there is a T-Rex that merges with Venom merges with a T-Rex, should I say. So it's like a symbiote T-Rex situation going on. It's crazy. It's nuts. Their car is Spider-Man's car, which sticks to walls and can drive up walls and stuff. It's pretty insane. There's loads of stuff that you can't do it. And if you would have tried to adapt it exactly as the comic, you would have ended up with just fucking Origins Wolverine again, probably.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's loads more characters in the comic as well, just that Fox didn't have access to. They couldn't use Hulk, they couldn't use Spider-Man.
I'm kind of glad though. I think Logan being like a stripped back road movie works for me.
Yeah.
I think too many of those films are just a game of how many of these familiar characters can we cram into one movie, and it's boring now.
Yeah.
We've done it.
You're absolutely right, but that is the thing that makes this interesting and makes it stand out amongst a sea of mediocre superhero movies. Some are brilliant, don't get me wrong, even the ones that are a bit more sort of family orientated. Some of them are straight 5-star entertainment, brilliant movies in my opinion, but I think this works so much better because it's quite grounded, because it's, as you say, it's sort of a scaled back road trip movie. You can really dig into, you can really get your claws in, if you will, to the characters. And I think maybe if they had access to way more characters, there might have been more of a temptation to use them.
Yeah, I'm so glad that isn't the case.
Yeah.
I think the beauty of this film is, ironically, I guess, it's humanity. And the more sort of fantastical elements you introduce, the more of that you remove.
Yeah.
It's hard to balance both, and I think this film does it perfectly.
I think it does do it perfectly. I do think it is leaning on our knowledge of the history of the X-Men franchise and our knowledge of those characters, but at the same time it sort of dispenses with that. It sort of goes, remember these characters that you know and love? Well, these are different versions. But I think it works because a lot of those X-Men movies did go quite big, and they shit the bed, some of them. They were terrible, and there was just too much going on, too much CGI, too much Vinnie Jones in it. But this,
any Vinnie Jones is too much.
But the stripped back nature of this, and the how grounded and sort of just gritty and real, and you said the word humanity, just how human this story is, but at the same time using the powers to explore that humanity, I just think is genius. I think it's what this movie does, what really good sci-fi does, and it takes a fantastical situation to explore human nature and what this thing means to us. And I think with Charles and with Logan, Logan, his superpower was regenerating, being indestructible, and when you take that away from him, he's vulnerable. But that's his character arc, is learning how to be vulnerable. So it fits perfectly. It's perfectly written to integrate his powers and his humanity. And the same with Charles as well, because he's an aging guy, but obviously his superpower was the mindy thing, where he can do mindy things to people.
Mindy things.
Yeah. Right?
Brain stuff.
He tells people to do stuff.
Yeah.
And he can influence people. But where he's aging and...
It's telepathy, right? It's not like... Telekinesis is where you can move things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's telepathy.
More telepathy kind of leaning, I would say.
Right.
Yeah. But he's obviously an aging guy, so he's starting to lose the ability to control his brain, his thoughts. And where his superpower comes in is that also means that he's not able to control that element. And this explores what would happen if Charles Xavier was a real human being that was getting old and needed help, like many of us will do or do need. But what does that look like in someone that has the ability to destroy people with his mind?
Yeah, it's funny because we've all had those conversations, right? Like, if you were a superhero, which one would you be? Which powers would you want? Like, prior to this film, I probably would have said Wolverine, because being sort of chronically ill, my body feels like I'm 80 years old some days. If I had the power to just like regenerate, that would be amazing. But this sort of adds, like you say, that human element, and it completely grounds it and makes the characters so much easier to connect with and relate to, and that's what gives it its heart.
Yeah, absolutely. But it has the room to breathe as well, this film. It has the runtime 2 hours 17 minutes. It has that room to really explore those characters. And I did say this does benefit from all of the years of the X-Men history that we've had, but at the same time, as I said, it does set that aside, so it kind of has the best of both worlds there. Okay,
well, so off the back of that then, I'm going to ask you, do you think this works as a standalone? Do you think somebody could watch and enjoy this with no prior knowledge of the X-Men franchise or characters?
Yeah, I think you can quite easily. I think if there was...
I think you might be a little bit thrown in at the deep end to begin with.
I think if I was to... My mum, for example, doesn't give a flying fuck about superhero movies. Probably hasn't seen one since I lived with her. But if she was to say, Dan, I really want to watch a superhero movie, which one would you recommend? And I would say The Dark Knight. But next, I would say, no, she's probably seen that one, to be fair. But I would definitely say Logan. And the reason I say that is because it's the most grounded. But I think it benefits from the knowledge of the history of the previous movies, but it's not necessary information.
It's not reliant on it.
I feel like it's enhanced by knowing that.
Right.
By knowing what those characters did in the past, what kind of movies they were in, what we've always wanted to see, what was possible, what wasn't possible. So I feel like this is a really good payoff in that, fuck, this is the Logan movie I've always wanted to see. But at the same time, I think you could show someone that hasn't ever seen an X-Men movie and they can watch it and go, really good neo-Western movie, that, isn't it?
Yeah. So what is it about Logan that you think is kind of likable as a character? Because he's
a bellend. He's not likable.
Do you really think he's not likable at all?
I think when you get down to the core, I think, yes, absolutely he is. But fucking he makes it hard for you to get down to that core, doesn't he?
I don't know. Because I was going to say, like, yeah, his gruff exterior, he's horrible to people, he's rude. He's not, quote unquote, a very likable person. But I don't know if it speaks to Hugh Jackman's charisma. But there is something about that character that is really compelling and it fits in with the whole Western thing. He is the perfect anti-hero, but a part of that is the hero part.
Yeah.
So to some degree, he must be likable, right?
Well, I think that he's ultimately well-intentioned. I think he wants good for people. He doesn't want people to come to any harm, but at the same time, he will disregard people in the interests of, I guess, his bigger picture, in this case, in the interest of trying to keep Charles safe. But also he is avoiding that for his own selfish reasons. I don't think he wants to connect with people because he doesn't want to feel vulnerable.
Who does?
Exactly, which is why it's so relatable.
Yeah.
But ultimately I think good guy, obviously. He saved the Statue of Liberty or whatever he did in that movie.
So do you see this film purely as like his redemption arc then?
I would say he has, from start to finish of the movie, he has a whole redemption arc. I think this is a redemption of that character in general in the movies, because I think some of the movies were better than others, but ultimately his character never really got explored hugely.
No.
They did sort of hang the franchises on him a little bit, but quite rightly so.
Yeah.
But
he's a strong character, but you're right, the exploration of him as a person was pretty tertiary. It was pretty surface level.
They never got into the weeds of that character.
No.
And he's arguably the most interesting of all of those characters because of the way that his powers sort of tie into his kind of mindset, as we were discussing earlier. I think, if I met him in the pub, I'd be like, you're a fucking arsehole. But once he's had a few beers and you sort of connected, you think, you just got a rough exterior, aren't you?
Heart of gold.
Who's hurt you? Yeah, is it because you had to murder your girlfriend in Dark Phoenix?
Would you like a hug?
Yeah.
But yeah, you do see quite a few really quite heartwarming moments that aren't heavy-handed.
Yeah.
I think my favourite one is when they see the family that's kind of, I don't know what's happened, like their truck's broken down or something. There was an incident on the highway.
Well, the
people at the ranch.
The self-driving trucks.
Right.
Yeah, there's some, I think they change lanes quickly and Logan has to swerve. Doing so disturbs the Munson's driving, and then that's how they meet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there's some really lovely quiet moments. I think you're sort of talking about the dinner, right, that they're having there?
Yeah, because initially he was super reluctant to help them, and then Charles kind of talks him into it. And yeah, they have some really nice moments, and then he sort of stands up for the dad when the ruffians are trying to get money out of him, or I can't remember the specifics.
That's another kind of Western trope there. There's someone trying to take over the ranch, and it's a corporation with heavies, and you've got to employ a dark character who's going to help. Yeah, if we're talking about sort of nice moments as well, you can see that he is kind of suppressing something, I feel like, as well, with the earlier scenes with X23, Laura. You sort of, when you realise that, when he realises that she is a clone of him, he's like, oh, fuck, man, I've got to take care of this kid now. But he really sort of doesn't really want to. But you can see that he's conflicted about it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, super relatable, though. If someone was like, oh, by the way, this kid is genetically your child, I'd be like, nah.
Yeah.
Get me on Maury Povich. I want proof.
Also, this kid might decapitate you with her knife feet.
Yeah, accidentally. She might even mean to.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, we're hardwired as humans, aren't we, to go, oh, small thing, vulnerable, must take care of.
Yeah, and that's another kind of part of this story is the kind of the generational, you've got the father-son story with Charles and Logan, and you've got father-daughter story with Logan and Laura. So I feel like a lot of those, his character arc is basically becoming a father and doing the right thing.
Choosing the right thing.
Choosing the right thing, even if it's to his own detriment.
Yeah, spoiler.
Yeah. If you've seen this movie,
we declare spoilers. I'm kidding.
Yeah, but I think we're talking about a lot of the more grounded and quiet moments in this superhero movie, which is interesting because I feel like when I watch a superhero movie, a lot of the time it's because I want to see fun action set pieces.
Yeah.
But this one, I feel like the more interesting stuff is the quieter moments when, like you mentioned, when they're sitting around the table and they're having a conversation. I'm super interested in that, super invested in that scene. But having said that, the action scenes in this are fucking great.
I'm in absolute agreement, which is kind of rare lately. But yeah, I think the action is super well done. It's riveting. But I'm never bummed out when we get scene upon scene upon scene of character building and world building. And the runtime just zips by.
It really does zip by. I feel like it sort of takes about 40 minutes to get to your first major action sequence, but you get
the mission.
Yeah. But you get the opening action sequence, which kind of satisfies if that's what you're going for.
Sets that sort of tone.
Yeah, but it takes 40 minutes to get to the first proper action sequence, really. But up to that point, I'm just so invested, and it's just gone. It's that 40 minutes has felt like 12 minutes, so I've got no problem with that. And the action scene is great and really well shot, and the way that it uses, I feel like the camera is definitely using the powers of X23 and how sort of small frame. To figure out where to put the camera and how to sort of use that camera. And I love the setup of Donald Pierce looking for her, and she comes out and she throws the head at him, and he's like, oh shit. But then you see her, she does the Jackie Chan thing, she runs up the building, and then she's gone inside the building and she's climbed up, and the camera sort of pans up, and we know that she's small. Like, it's what would her advantage be? It would be to attack from above, and it all makes complete sense.
Death from above. Yeah, she's great.
She is great.
Obviously, a lot of that was a stunt double, but
yeah,
obviously Dafne Keen is excellent with the physical stuff and the acting. But stunt double did a lot of that, and apparently James Mangold was so impressed with Daphne's stunt double that he cast them as one of the other mutant kids.
Oh right,
in the third act.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That whole action sequence that then leads into the car chase where they're racing the freight train, which we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But that's, again, there's a sequence in there that lets you know we're not watching a regular movie, because he tries to drive through the fence and it doesn't work, because it fucking wouldn't. He gets stuck on the fence and he reverses, and he's got this fence being dragged along, and it's interesting. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah. I like that. I like films that respect the laws of physics.
Yeah, and obviously with any of these movies, you've got a certain amount of... you have to just accept that these are fantastical. They're stories and they're movies and they're not real, and we understand that, but I feel like the most successful ones are able to ground them in reality, and you sort of forget about the other stuff. Yeah. It just sort of happens and you don't think about it.
I think another thing that really benefits that element is the really, really restrained use of any CGI or green screen stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly which scenes were CGI or green screen. I can't kind of name any off the top of my head, but something that James Mangold, it was something he wanted to really sort of steer clear of wherever possible.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of his... that's how he wants to direct movies. Certainly Ford v Ferrari is similar. Most of it is practical and in camera. There are some CGI shots because they just are in every fucking movie you watch. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always some CGI in it. And this is no different. There is some, but I don't know how many shots there were, but I bet it's like a relatively low amount compared to your average superhero movie. There was a digital double going on with the X24 stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you had like the overlay happening there.
Yeah, face swap.
Looked fucking great. Looked great. And it's maybe the most successful version of that I've ever seen.
I don't know how they did that. Was it Hugh Jackman and they did de-aging? Or obviously there was another actor when they were interacting, but I don't know how they accomplished that. But if it was de-aging, it looked a fuck ton better than Indy 5.
I think Indy 5 looked good. The problem is that it's when he's moving around and you can just sort of, there's like a delay on the face moving compared to
but that's what I'm saying. Like, if it was the same technique used here, there is a way to film it so that that's not glaringly obvious.
I'm not sure that it was the same technique, and the reason I say that is because it looked good and it was like 7 years ago.
Yeah,
so I feel like the aging wasn't as good as it is now, and even now it's not brilliant.
So it's more sort of deep fake?
I think maybe it was, maybe not de-aging, but they obviously had a double who shot, for instance, X24 coming down the stairs with the Munsons and they had a double for that, and then they overlaid, I think, and then also Hugh Jackman shot that scene as well. So he actually played both parts and a double, from what I understand. And then they overlaid his face onto the double of him doing the same actions. But I don't know if they necessarily used any de-aging software.
Okay.
It might have just been some smoothing out, or maybe stretching the image did what they needed it to do. I don't fully know or understand any of that. And I did try to do some research, but I spent 15-20 minutes looking for it. Couldn't really find my answer. I thought, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole. I just hope that you won't ask me about it during the podcast. But no, I think there's that, obviously, digital effects, and obviously the Reavers, Donald Pierce's robot hands and the leg, which looked good, I thought.
Yeah.
You don't see that much of it, and maybe a little bit underused, but this movie is not about the villains, so I'm fine with that.
I mean, that sort of made me think of Charlize Theron in Fury Road.
Yeah.
Same techniques, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, look good. I'm just going to go back to the dinner scene, if we may, because I feel like that's a major point in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is a major point in the movie. Let's not dance around it. That's when Charles gets killed.
Yeah.
But I think everything that we've seen before that has made you kind of realise how pleased you are for these characters just to be sitting around and having a regular conversation.
Yeah, a moment of normalcy.
Charles has been living in a water tank.
The way you said
like
that is
Michael
like
Rappaport in Copland.
recurring themes.
Yeah. Yeah, they've obviously had a really hard time over the course of, I think, the last year or so, at least, that is kind of explained in the movie. So it's really nice when we get to that scene and they're sitting together.
Yeah.
They have a nice chat, but it doesn't last, does it? Because it turns into a fucking horror movie.
Can never last.
No. X-24 comes in and kills Charles, and Charles looks and he sees Logan. The last thing that he sees is Logan killing him, right? Actually, he's not quite dead at that point, because Logan comes in and takes him out. Yeah, and it's pretty heartbreaking, because his last words are something about the boat, I guess, talking about the Sunseeker yacht that they were trying to procure earlier on in the movie. Yeah, and it's heartbreaking. I think this movie is successful because of how grounded and how relatable it is, how human it is. And what we'd seen up to that point is Charles really struggling with something that's quite very real to a lot of people. Yeah. And probably quite relatable.
I lost 2 grandparents to dementia.
Right.
It's wicked.
Yeah.
It's horrible. It really sort of helped to anchor it, though, for me. That was a big part of the emotional element.
Yeah, and we'd seen the struggle throughout the film. So when we get that dinner scene, you think, this is lovely. I'm really enjoying this. Mm-hmm. And then it just fucking destroys you straight afterwards.
Yeah.
Because that's what this movie does. It gives you and then taketh away. And it's just masterfully done. And just after that point, you know that Hugh Jackman is kind of like, well, there's nothing left to lose kind of scenario.
Scorched earth.
But there is, because he's got his daughter to think of now. Mm. So it's,
who ends up inadvertently kind of saving him.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing in the movie, isn't it? Like, he allows himself to be vulnerable and be saved by her, but the price he has to pay is by dying.
Yeah.
Which is...
Well, she saves him physically by taking him to that doctor.
She saves him for a bit, yeah.
Yeah. But then she saves his soul.
Yeah.
He learns to love again.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I don't know if I would say it was a theme, but there's definitely the use of borders in this movie. You've got Logan crossing the border from America into Mexico, where he's hiding Charles away. And then later on in the movie, in the third act, you've got X-23 who's trying to get to Canada, right? Mm-hmm. He's trying to cross that border so that the powers in America can't pursue Laura and her friend and her mutant friends. So I feel like there's some kind of commentary there about borders, immigration.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a political element to this film. I think you can choose to read into it or not. I'm not intelligent enough to tell you exactly what the political elements are that are going on, but yeah, the talk of borders, the fact that Laura's Mexican, even you mentioned kind of the right-wing pundit on TV at the start, like there's definitely some elements of kind of lampooning the right.
Yeah.
In some ways, and definitely some criticism of the government for sure.
It's definitely contextual. It's definitely kind of helping you set this world up for you, something that you kind of recognise, but is also a little bit in the future. It's curious that this movie came out a year after Trump was elected. This movie would have been being made before he was president. But I would imagine that it was probably in a zeitgeist. He was running. Maybe we're like, this is probably what would happen if, which will never happen, Trump becomes president.
Imagine this alternate dystopian future a year down the line. Oh, fuck.
But I do remember watching this movie for the first time, and then when seeing Logan is traveling into Mexico, I was thinking of fucking Trump and the idiot things that he said about that.
Yeah, and the fact that his policies kind of saw children separated from families and put in fucking containment camps, and his whole fucking platform was built on let's build the wall.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that was his biggest talking point when he was running. So it stands to reason that some of that would have made its way into the film.
I don't know if it was just coincidence or
was it not being made while he was campaigning though?
Well, this would have been, probably. This was being made in 2015. It was probably being written in 2014, 2015.
I mean, look,
production 2016.
Maybe the writers put their heads together and just were really prescient, and maybe they predicted the future in some ways.
That does happen, but then also
the Simpsons keep doing it.
Yeah, but I feel like. I sort of thought it's just a coincidence. There's no way that there could have been any crossover there. But when you pointed out to me that the villain is called Donald in this movie, I think maybe there's something. I mean, rewrites are a thing. So you could have probably at some point along the writing process done a rewrite, added some elements in, made it a bit more kind of, I don't know, I'm not fucking saying the words Trumpian world-like, but you know what I mean by that.
I do.
Dystopian. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if this movie has a strong... I would say it has a point of view, but I'm not sure it really wants to draw your attention too much to those things.
Yeah, it's not overtly political, but there are some bits kind of woven into the fabric of it, I would say.
And that is, again, it's perfect because it's giving you this world that we recognise, but it's not really about that. It's just a setting for these characters. I think if you start looking at the politics of things, you're probably moving into a more traditional X-Men movie there, where we're going to give all of the mutants the cure, the antidote, or whatever it is. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thread, and it's not something you see an awful lot, particularly in these. You don't see an awful lot in superhero movies.
No,
these types of things.
No, and I think it's kind of, especially 7 years ago, was a bit unlike a lot of other superhero movies that we're used to now, because I kind of have started to associate them with this sort of day glow, rainbow coloured world, especially with things like Guardians and Captain Marvel and
Ant-Man, which you mentioned earlier.
Ant-Man, yeah. Obviously, as you said at the start of the show, when they were in their peak with things like Winter Soldier, obviously very muted tones, that's very different. But this has more in common with the MCU's best than the latter stuff. It looks incredible, and it's lit so beautifully. Yeah,
I think that's why the black and white version works so well.
Did you watch the black and white one all the way through?
Listen, we watched Logan together.
We did.
Then I watched the director's commentary, Jim Boy Mangold. And then I watched about 45 minutes to an hour of the noir, Logan Noir. And it's good. It's really good.
How does it compare? Does it enhance it or?
No, I wouldn't say it enhances it. I would say it's an interesting way to watch the movie and does bring an appreciation to it. But I'm always going to choose to watch the colour version because it just looks so beautiful.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see the alternative.
Yeah. Just going back to what you were saying there about the MCU was more successful when they were trying to do a genre, a subgenre, a spy thriller. And this does do that. It does essentially a Western, but it goes a step further as well. And it's just kind of, it's the more quiet moments, the more sort of slice of life.
Yeah.
How these characters would really act with each other. Laura on the rocking horse thing, where he puts the money in.
She's still a child.
A really beautiful scene that just after you've just seen her murder everyone, you see her and you think, oh fuck, she is a kid, isn't she? But it is the slice of life that I like about this movie, and it's something I've always wanted to see from comic book movies as well. I think you and I have spoken in the past about, I just would love to see a stuck in a place movie with Captain America and Iron Man and Thor. And you know, like the scene in Age of Ultron where they're just sitting around the bar and they're talking about who can lift up the hammer.
Yeah.
Brilliant scene. And maybe my favourite scene in Age of Ultron, but it's just them sitting around talking.
Yeah.
And I think you can really do some interesting stuff with these characters.
All you need is a good script.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
And you need a good script. You need $100 million.
No.
All you need is $100 million. And you need the fucking balls to maybe kill off a character.
You don't need 100. Look at Godzilla -1.
Yes,
15 million.
Example. Yeah.
You can make an astonishing looking film for far less than 100 million.
Yeah. I suppose if you're getting Downey in the movie, then automatically it's a
Well,
$30
yeah.
million movie.
All right. So
with nothing else. Just
the
Downey,
salaries.
just Downey sitting in a room.
Yeah.
30 million.
Monologuing.
Yeah. I would love to see some of that stuff from the MCU.
Yeah.
Just do what DC are doing and like have some of their Elseworlds stories like Joker, you know, and their more successful projects have been when they've been their own thing.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight trilogy, I know there are 3 of those movies, but they don't connect to anything else. Obviously the Superman movies, which we've mentioned, and Joker and the Suicide Squad. I know that the James Gunn one, I know that kind of connects into other movies as well, but it is also kind of its own thing.
Oh, it's got personality.
Yeah.
That's all it needs. A good script and a bit of personality.
Yeah. And it's just, I think they just suffer, but it feels like they're kind of handcuffed when they have to use a certain character or they have to set up a certain thing. I feel like what they should do is just write a really good fucking story. And if something works and it's going to lead on something else, then include it. But don't compromise your story or the quality of the film in order to set up that thing.
I think, do you know what? On that exact point that you're just making, I think it's no coincidence that this is one of the best superhero movies, and it's one of the tiny minority that doesn't have a post-credits scene setting up something else. Because I think that is the biggest problem with the MCU and DC to a slightly lesser extent. It feels like they're less focused on being in the present and working on this thing than they are about thinking 2 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake.
I totally agree. I think there's a way to do it. I think the MCU was successful for a long time in doing that. Whereas this movie it relies on the fact that it doesn't have to connect to anything else. So it can just be its own thing. And I think I agree with you. I think this is one of the best superhero movies ever made.
One of the very few that was Oscar nominated as well.
Oh, what was it?
I think Best Adapted Screenplay.
It deserved it. It deserved a supporting actor for Patrick Stewart, I think.
Yeah.
He
was great.
Like to have seen that. I think this is maybe this is the best comic book movie that there has ever been. It's not my favourite. It might be my favourite.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen The Dark Knight like 35 times at this point, and I still love it. And I still go back to it.
You know, I don't have any sort of enduring connection to those films.
Yeah, I know.
So my vote is Logan. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think maybe this is better. Like as a self-contained.
Just objectively, you mean?
Yeah, just in terms of how much heart there is. The very human story of it. I know those Batman movies are more grounded, but as with all Nolan movies, they're quite cold and there's not a lot emotionally to get connected with. Whereas this, there really is, that you can't deny, you can't help but get engaged with the relationship with Charles or with X-23. And yeah, it just all feels very real. And I think that's key in making a good movie, is making it relatable.
Yeah, it's the perfect balance of every element, really.
Agreed. I think maybe this might be the best comic book movie. I don't know if I can really... for me, I think Dark Knight is probably still my favourite. But I think I wouldn't argue with you if you said that this was the best.
Well, good, because I am going to say this is the best.
Agreed. I can't argue with that.
Did you come close to doing a little cry when she turns the gravestone cross on its side and it makes an X?
I probably came somewhat close, yeah. Did you do an actual cry?
Maybe a single tear rolled down my cheek, yes.
Very stoic.
Just an individual one, yeah.
I know I saw this at the cinema with my sister and her partner at the time, and he was just fucking bawling his eyes out.
Was he?
Yeah,
oh.
And I totally get it. Like, I was almost there. So if I'm almost there, then it must be really upsetting. But yeah, I think that was just a nice touch when she's... this is a Western because there's a corpse under a pile of rocks.
There we go. Nailed it.
Yeah, she buries Logan and the X goes on the side. It's the best way to end this franchise.
Yeah.
It would seem like full on and maybe a bit cheesy, but it does work. I think. I feel like they've earned that. At the end of this movie, I'm thinking maybe this is a bit much, but do you know what? You fucking nailed this.
Do you know what? You've articulated my feelings exactly on that moment. I think in a lesser film that would seem really corny. But you're right, they've earned it.
But do you know what? I think maybe the death of Charles is maybe more difficult for me to take.
Yeah.
I feel like with Logan, I was maybe expecting that as the film went on. Maybe his arc is he's not going to make it out of this movie.
I mean, they both had a pretty good innings.
Yeah. But I feel like the death of Charles is what probably I found more upsetting because of the tragedy of him.
And the guilt he'd been carrying.
Yeah, the guilt that he'd been carrying, but also the tragedy of him seeing himself being murdered by what he probably assumes is Logan.
Yeah.
He probably thinks that he's been killed by his son at that point, essentially. And that's just heartbreaking. And added to that, they've brought this nightmare onto this family. So it's like there's tragedy wherever you look in that scene. So I feel like
Don't stop. You're making me tear up now. I'm getting tearful thinking about it.
I'm sorry. And then that leads up to the scene where he's burying Charles and he doesn't know what to say. What does he say? He says, "There's the water" or something. Where's the water?
Oh, yeah.
And he can't say anything.
Yeah.
It's just all in the eyes and he tears up. But then that's juxtaposed by the next scene, which is played for laughs, where he's just beating the shit out of his car with that spade. And it's masterfully done. That whole part is brilliantly done. And I think that's where I felt most of my emotions was there.
Right.
But also, yeah, I did feel some emotions at the end because it's the end as well. And it's also
I mean,
yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, it's bittersweet because on one hand I'm going, I am so glad. You've nailed this, guys. Everyone involved, hats off to you. You've made a fantastic movie. Oh, but shit, it's the last one that we're going to see.
Yeah, but a character that we've literally grown up with is no more.
Yeah, until Reynolds.
Until he's back. Yeah. Until his mate finds him and says, hey up.
Yeah. How do you feel about that after watching this movie?
I don't know. I really, really, really enjoy the Deadpool movies, so I'm going to reserve judgment until I've seen it. I think if they're anything like the first and the second, then they'll find a way to do it that's fun. But yeah, no comment at the moment.
I kind of think that you can sort of have your cake and eat it with this one because Logan is its own thing. It was a swan song for Hugh Jackman. It's sent off
and
that
it's set
character.
in the future.
And it's set in the future. It's an alternative future. Like, you can do all sorts of timey-wimey multiverse stuff with whatever characters you want. But I would say in another scenario, I might feel cheated by having him come back. But in this one, I think it's fine. Because also Deadpool is so, like, it's
ludicrous.
It's set in the Fox universe.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not now, but who knows? But I feel like it can just do whatever it wants because it's just completely played for laughs. And it kind of feels like on the outside, it kind of feels like it's just us with Deadpool laughing at the tropes of superhero movies.
Yeah.
It's kind of feels like it's its own thing and they can kind of do whatever they want.
I know what you mean, like the way you phrased it, feeling cheated. I think I know what you mean there because it's such a bold move to kill a character like that. And it's brave and I wish we had more of it. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of superhero movies run into is that there are rarely consequences. And obviously when you bring in like multiverse shit and it's like, oh, so everybody's just probably going to come back at some point.
Yeah.
There are no consequences. There are no stakes. I can't get emotionally invested.
Yeah, and that's perfectly reasonable and something that I wrestle with as well. Like, there's a certain amount of, you watch a superhero movie, but even if a character was to meet their demise, which they very rarely do in those movies, there is still an element of, well, they'll be back.
Yeah.
When the MCU needs fucking Robert Downey Jr. to come back, he will be back. He will be Iron Man, he'll be the AI, he'll be some other different version, he'll be a good version or an evil version. Like, there's so many hundreds of ways you can do it. And I think that's fine. I don't mind having that.
I do.
As long as I get the Logans as well. And if I have to choose, I'm choosing the Logans.
Yeah.
But ideally, I would like a little bit of everything because I like variety and I like just having a popcorn and watching Iron Man do a click and going, I am Iron Man, and having a little tear, having a little cry, but understanding that one day he'll be back, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
But for Logan,
the character,
4 thumbs up.
Oh, the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, how many thumbs do we have between us? We've got
4. 4 thumbs.
Yeah, so 5 thumbs up.
5?
Yeah.
For when you really like something.
6 Logan claws. What are they called? Clawy claws.
Adamantium
claws.
Yeah.
And Laura's got 1, 2, 3.
She's got feet ones.
She's got 1 in each foot, so that's 2, and then she's got 2 in each hand, 2, 4, 6. Yeah. 6. And Logan's got 6 in total, so that's 12. So that's 12 claws out of 12.
That's a lot of claws.
This is a fucking masterpiece of the genre, and I don't see Mangold topping this.
Mm,
I think
I'd be surprised.
I would be surprised too. I love Ford v Ferrari as much as I love this film. To me, they're sort of neck and neck, but I think this might be his masterpiece. We did it then.
Yeah.
We did Logan. We're going to continue the theme of neo-Western, obviously, next week.
What's next week?
Next week is... We're doing another Taylor Sheridan. We're doing Wind River.
Oh, yeah.
Part of his Frontier trilogy. We explored Hell or High Water back in season 2 for...
Which is also a neo-Western.
Which is also a neo-Western, yeah. Anything that Taylor Sheridan is involved with is either a Western or a neo-Western.
Yeah. He was even in it on a horse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he was. So we're going to be talking about Jeremy Renner, probably the Renner app, Elizabeth Olsen, and Taylor Sheridan quite a bit.
Yeah. Cool.